Premier Gospel.
Pastor Dimas, a pastor, producer, director, humanitarian. Thank you so much for joining us here at Premier. We are talking because of your latest film documentary, Chicago, Hidden War of America, which documents the horrific things going on in Chicago. But if I could dial back a little, your background, you are known in many quarters as the modern day Nicky Cruz because of the life story of being in gangs, not just being in gangs, being a kingpin when it comes to a city, and then giving your life to Christ. But what baffled me is you grew up in a home. Your mother was a head teacher of a school, as we might call it here. Your father, I think, was in the Air Force or something nature, and you lived in an area that many would would kill for in New York. It was a lovely area, known as a lovely area. How do you end up in drugs at the age of 11 with all the things people say a young boy must have to live a steady life?
You know, a lot of people think white communities don't have drugs in them. And I went to a predominantly white school, and one of my friends called me in the bathroom, and he had stole a bag of drugs, mescaline at the time, which is a hallucinogen drug. And he was like, look, you know, you want to help me sell this? And I had just watched the movie Scarface, and, you know, which was written by Oliver Stone. And that movie, they wanted to rate that movie X, not because of, in the United States, you know, we rate X ratings means nudity or something like that. They wanted to rate it X because of the effects they thought it would have on young people. And they were right. I saw that movie and I said, wow, I said, I can make millions of dollars selling drugs. And then I dived into that drug world. And my mother and them didn't know. And, you know, they taught me the good path. They said, son, this is what you're going to do. You're going to go to school, then you're going to end up going to university, and, you know, and you're going to have a career. And I started seeing people that were dealing crack cocaine that were around my age. One guy that was going to my school, he was 12 years old, and he was driving a Volvo. And I said, wow. And I said, man, we could do this like this. And so that's what caught me. But in the neighborhood, because it was so beautiful, because it was so manicured, because, you know, all the families were so tight knit, they didn't realize that the underworld was growing right underneath their noses. And it became one of the largest crack dealing areas in the United States. One drug block made $150,000 a day, every day.
You, as I said, and as you just recounted, you grew up in this nice area. You fall into this, and I know that in your book, Street Guard, you talk about these things as a way of waking up parents to know that just dropping off their children in a school doesn't solve the problem. I wonder though, how is it that, I mean, an 11-year-old, you see another 11-year-old driving a nice car, or having to seem to have the freedom and the power you might want. What they have to say becomes so much more effective on your psyche than what your mother at home is saying, that, you know, mommy loves me, but this kid I don't know. Is that all just down to Scarface?
Yeah, I would say Scarface had great influence on me. When you're like, even you know, this is why there's a large population of Black young people that drop out of school. It's hard to see far down the road how everything connects together. You know, what she said to me sounded like 70 years away. You know what I mean? Even though it wasn't, it sounded like 70 years away. She's like, yeah, and after you work, and after you do this, after university, then you'll have a car, then you'll have this. And I'm looking and saying, wait, I could get this right now. I don't want to wait 70 years. And then even in the developmental stages of adolescence, 11, 12, 13-year-old, you have a poor sense of reality. You have a poor sense of consequences. So you're trained to distrust, to not trust your parents from the dumb television shows you watch. You know, the father always comes in, well, what about this? You know, the mother's like, what's going on? And she's in the blind. So all those things had a real impact on me. And that's what motivated me later on to want to be engaged in film and in television, to help change this narrative, to be able to look like, if you look back at the black and white movies and things like that, they were helping to form character, which is not even being touched today.
So you do go on to make films, and one of the reasons we're talking now is because your current one is shortlisted for the Oscars, which is an incredible thing, and it's even more incredible knowing that that wasn't what you started out to do. You just started out to bring change in an area. But before I move on, looking back now, if you were talking to, if you had the opportunity to talk to your mum or your dad, though they were separated, and you could say something to them that could effectively change the impact of Scarface on their 11-year-old, what would you say to them to do or not to do? Because I guess at some stage you would have seen Scarface, but what could they have said or done that would have changed the outcome of what went through your eye gates?
Outside of Jesus, I don't think much would have been able to change. One thing that my father did that was very helpful was he bought a hot dog stand just for me. He said, I'm going to teach you how to work. And we would go out. And when I was doing the hot dog stand, at the end of the day, he showed me how to do the books, how to manage it. And I would have a stack of cash, you know, a lot of singles, because the hot dogs were like, today would be €1, but you know, it was like $1. So I had a stack of ones, and I was like 10 years old, looking like a king, you know, going and buying clothes and stuff like that. And then he just kind of stopped it. So I had this hunger for that image again and that money to continue. So I walked into the perfect storm. I already had the love of money. I had no Jesus, and I had opportunities to do sin. And I'm in a big city that, you know, is known for darkness. And at that time, the mafia, John Gotti and all of them, controlled almost everything in New York. Everything in New York City pointed back to the mob. It's a miracle that they are not in control anymore. So I was the perfect storm. The other thing I think which probably could have been helpful is when you see the environment swallowing your child, if you have the means and the ability, get him out of that environment. Wow. You know, I'm sending you to go stay with your aunt somewhere for a little while to break this routine, you know, because the neighborhood had a grip on me, you know, more than I think most people know. Gangs have a grip on your children more than you can ever imagine. Because every time they come, where were you? Yo, we were doing this. Why weren't you here? You know, that's a higher level of accountability than sometimes parents have as they are going home and coming to work and seeing their kid. The gangs are very, very invested. In the sad part, they're often way more vested than the church is. A gang member will put you in his house to sleep and stay if you get kicked out. A church may say, I have to walk through this process with you. We have to figure things out. You know, I'm not going to be able to do this for you. So the church has to really find a way to outlove people more than the darkness does. But
So
that's a whole nother message. And tough. And I've been a pastor for years, so I'm not picking on pastors, but I'm saying sometimes the church gets a little too organized and too structured that we don't operate like Jesus will. Just come in here. You need food? Come in here, sit down. Hey, let's order some food right now. We say we have a food program on Wednesdays. We have a food program on Thursdays. Come back then. And so it's not as often as organic as it could be.
And one of the things you do talk about, or you highlight with the movie Chicago, the Hidden Wars, which is why we're talking. You talk about how there's a need for the church to remain, because in your journey you saw the work you did meant that crime went to almost zero in your area.
Yes.
But there's an image that's stuck in my mind, which I really need you to speak to. You're a young gangster, young successful gangster. You're arrested. You escape. You've got handcuffs on. You escape from the police. You get dressed in a woman's dress and run to. I mean, this is the stuff you watch on movies.
Yeah.
Take us through that for someone who's not familiar with that part of your story. I mean, albeit we know it's tragic, it's sad, but it just the picture of a young bright mind. So, I mean, tell us about how you got there and how you got through that to Carolina and became daylight in Carolina.
So I could do that. So I did a small stint in jail for a year, not for anything violent, for drugs. I got snitched out, basically. Someone set me up. So they put me in jail for a year. So I get out, and honestly, I wanted to do the right thing. I wanted to turn a leaf and get a job, but nobody hired me, and that was so hurtful. And so I said, okay, well, I know how to make money again. And I got pulled back into that world. And I walked straight in as a leader. So that's very helpful. But what I didn't realize, I used to know the reason I made so much money was like the TV show Breaking Bad. I was a chef. I knew how to cook and process it myself at a higher quality than everybody else. So, but while I was cooking and processing, I must have skipped a class on that your hands are like pores. So the cocaine was going into my bloodstream and I didn't know it from cooking and sweating. So I'm giving these urine tests to my parole. I don't know what they call it in Europe, but you have to go back to someone that's
your parole officer.
Oh, parole. Okay. So I'm giving it. So then one day they handcuff me and they say 3 times you came in here testing positive for cocaine and you have to go back to jail. Now there were guys in jail that wanted to kill me, okay? Because I was a big time fighter. And now I was going through my mind. I said, these guys now are on top in jail. If I go in jail, I'm going to get stabbed up, sliced up. So I took the handcuffs like so, and I knelt down and brought them to the front of me and stepped over them. And when the officer had left the room, and when they came back, they didn't notice that now the cuffs were in front of me. I just was very flexible. So then the woman said, are you ready to go to jail? I said, no, I'm not. And I took off running. And I'm running, and I got to the stairwell. And, when you're young, your body's like rubber. Okay, I just leaped and dived down the stairs and was rolling and got. If I did that today, I'd be still at the bottom of the stairs like, oh my gosh. So I'm running, and I get out, and I'm running down this big street. It's almost like, like Piccadilly Circus in a kind of way. And they're chasing me down, and I'm getting past all the people, and I'm going and going, and I hide inside of a mall. And they thought I went all the way in the mall, but I jumped into a barber shop and hid in the office. And nobody in the barbershop saw me do this. I don't know to this day how that happened. But you could hear everybody and everyone's yelling in the barbershop. Cops is chasing some guy down the stairs and they're running after this guy. And then one of the barbers opened the door and I'm there with the handcuffs like, please call my friend who was a barber at the time. And he came and was like, what's going on? And I said, look, I need help. He went, got a cutter, snapped it. And then he said, I'm gonna have a friend that's gonna pull around the car, but you gotta change up. So I took my shirt off and put a hat on and I walked like I was really short and got in the car and got away. And then to make a long story short, I told my girlfriend we have to get out of here because they started to surround our whole perimeter where her house was and everything. And I had to dress like a woman and get in a car and get out of the checkpoint and then caught a train with drugs strapped all over my body to go into North Carolina because I had already done one trip there prior to this. So I said, we have to move everything down to the Carolinas. And that's how this whole thing kicked off.
You became an incredible, successful drug dealer, but then you had an encounter with three.
I had an encounter with Jesus.
But first, the encounter was preceded by a young lady who was known to be a witch, who does what we might call obeah on you, which you said affected your mind. And these older ladies who are running a Bible class heard and asked to pray for you.
Which, let me just say this. I love journalists from the UK. Y'all do your homework. I appreciate that. I really do. I can tell you how many people are like, I don't know, tell me more. But every time, whether it's your program or others, and you're dealing with the UK, you're really dealing with excellence. So I just want to applaud you on knowing so much. You know more about my own life than me almost.
That's very kind. But take us back to that moment, because that moment will define what then happens later on and what we're talking about now, which is this film, which we're all rooting for you, hoping that it goes all the way at the Oscars. It starts with three old ladies who they're not televangelists. Probably won't see them on TV. Even if you saw them on the street, you probably think, old girls, but they were the tools that God used to turn your life around. Tell us about that moment.
Sure. So this one drug dealer, drugs lead to darkness. If you look at Galatians, and there's a word, I think it's Galatians chapter 5, somewhere around verse 18 and 19, there's a word called sorcery. And the Greek word is pharmakia, which connects to drugs, where we get the word pharmacy from. And so drugs always leads deeper and deeper into darkness. So this one enemy, kingpin drug dealer who controlled the territory adjacent to mine, he was dating a witch and paying her to do works on people. Now, many people from West Indian and African cultures and different cultures are very aware of this, and white cultures too, with Wicca and different things like that. Darkness is real. And she put, I'd say basically in layman's terms, a spell on me that I nearly lost my mind. I was shaking. I was seeing everything in red, and I was really going through. And then three ordinary women, that served Jesus faithfully, said, "Can we pray for you?" And they took me in a room, and when they prayed for me, in faith terms, I started to manifest. Demons started being really active. I mean, throwing me on the floor. I mean, it was quite a showdown, like the exorcism, but my head didn't spin around. But a lot of things went down in that room. And they prayed for me, and they cast the demonic powers out. And that started, from that point on, my journey into trying to pull others out of darkness. And I remember going outside after that happened. I started screaming to God. I said, "Never again, God. I will never sell crack cocaine again." And I said, "I'm only going to sell marijuana because it's natural." And God has a sense of humor. You know, he was patient with me. And then I realized I can't even do that. I got to follow Jesus all the way. Turned myself in, was facing 7 years. And the judge pardoned me because she said she could see that there was such a physical difference, such a glow, that she didn't want me to become who I used to be. And she wanted me to continue to be who I am. So that kind of spurred me into, you know, fighting homicides all around. I've been to, you know, Sri Lanka when they bombed there. You know, I've been to the Paris terrorist attack. I flew there to help out. You know, I've been all over. You know, I witnessed on the tubes of London many times where the sign says "Mind your gap." You know, I preached on those tubes. You know, I just try to be used anywhere that God could use me. Yeah.
Now I mean, I wish we had so much more time, because so much we could explore with you and you telling your story. But you've talked about this different parts of the world where you've gone, many parts where, I mean, the Red Cross will go, but certainly not a minister would go with his team, at least. No, and
Can I speak to that real quick?
Yes.
Because the church did all of disaster response first, and we give it all the way to Red Cross. They don't have a cross there because it wasn't, you know, somebody just said it's a nice looking symbol. There was a cross there because it was Christians going to do that work. So the faith community has given away its hospitals. It's given away its first responder jobs. It's given away many of its schools. And I think, you know, thinking that non-believers would do a much better job. And it's shown factual evidence that they don't do a much better job. So I think we have to keep the fight going and be in every sphere of influence and care and service, and not just sit back and say, you know, let's wait for someone else to come. So I think that's critical. And that's what led me to go into Chicago and start fighting. I mean, 77,000 people have been shot in Chicago.
But now, did you you yourself, you weren't really aware of the gravity of the darkness in Chicago yourself? You had a conversation with your publisher.
Yeah, Tyndale Publishings was located on the outskirts of Chicago. And I went there one day, you know, to do a meeting with them. And they were like, oh, the killings in Chicago are so bad. And I said, what do you mean? They said, you don't know? There have been more people killed in Chicago than Afghanistan and Iraq put together. And I said, what? I said, what's our country doing about it? So that's why the title is Chicago, America's Hidden War. And I can tell you, if the people dying there, if that was Boulder, Colorado, if that was Columbine area or whatever, I mean, the support to stop those killings would be unreal.
So for those who are not familiar, because you mentioned those names, what's the
what's significance about that? Predominantly white communities.
Chicago, and
those are predominantly white neighborhoods. You can't get more white than Columbine, where they had a mass shooting, or Boulder, Colorado, where they had shooting there as well. You know, those are predominantly white areas. But because it is the disenfranchised, poor communities in Chicago, the cops don't deal with it at the height of the level that they need to actually put a stop, or at least a big dent into the shootings.
Now you talk about whilst you're filming and you document in your film, you're surprised that back in New York, when there's a murder, NYPD, they shut down the area. But you were in Chicago, people were being shot, and you saw no police.
Yeah.
How is that possible?
So it's not quite no police. It's like this. Let's imagine someone was shot in London, you know, on a side street, you know, there would be a deep investigation. People try to find out what's going on. In Chicago, like you could see a crime scene and you can drive away and have a meal and come back, and there is no evidence that a crime scene has happened. It's like a cleanup crew that shows up, gathers their stuff, gets their bullets, you know, gets a few things, you know, mop, clean up the blood or whatever, and then it's out of there. That is not the case in many other cities. You would see the tape there for hours and hours and hours. You see detectives working there around the clock to find out what's going on. So that's why you heard the young man say, they don't solve murders in my neighborhood. You know, if you think of Jennifer Hudson, whose family were brutally murdered in Chicago, the singer from, you know, became a star American Idol and Dreamgirls, won an Academy Award. They did a deep investigation on her case because she was such a major figure. But if she wasn't a major figure, I would fight the argument that they would not have solved that case.
So one of the areas that you went through was the area that Michelle Obama grew up in.
Yeah, it's called Parkway Projects, known as O Block, and that is where Michelle Obama, when she was born, she was in that projects.
And you said you documented that there were kids, 11-year-olds, 10-year-olds, who actually at night in Chicago, they don't sleep on their beds, they sleep under their beds. Why is that? That seems...
Yeah, the kids said, you know, so these kids, people in Chicago get reports all the time of how people were shot by stray bullets while they were sleeping in their beds at night. So now these 9-year-old and 8-year-old and 10-year-old kids have to process that. And these kids, you know, we couldn't put everything in the movie, but these kids tell us, they're like, I got bullet hole rules in my house still today. So they have made a decision that it is safer for them to lay their blanket underneath their bed and lay flat, and they feel like it is a lesser chance of them being shot with bullets coming through the wall based on the trajectory that they say bullets inside of their homes. Do you hear how crazy this sounds? Can you, I mean, I know London mainly does stabbings. Can you imagine that these kids are walking around their homes, not just one, not just two, but every kid on our film, you see their whole group of them. I couldn't make this up. The guy said, how many of you have lost a loved one in your family? And one of them said, all of us did. All of us did.
Wow.
That wasn't like a group that they went and said, okay, how many of you have lost a loved one? Come to this gathering. No, it was just a gathering that was taking place. And at the gathering, all of them said, every last one of us has a family member that have been murdered on these streets. One kid said he watched, we're going to release this, just a little sneak peek video. I'll send it to you. And this kid said, look, I saw my uncle get beat up right in front of my house. Then they shot him right in front of my eyes. Then to make sure he was dead, they walked up and shot him again. And he said, I can never forget it. He said, I saw it with my eyes. He said, I can never forget it, man. Like that. It was so heart-wrenching what this kid saw. And it just blew me away.
Now, forgive me, I know I've taken more time than I should have, but let's. I hope we have the opportunity to speak to you again. But your film has been shortlisted for the Oscars. Tell us about that and what that means to you, and what the hope is for them, and how the British public can be involved in that journey.
Absolutely. So, you know, what happened is there are two lists. So there's the first list that comes out where you beat out thousands upon thousands of movies. So as a filmmaker, the honor is I'm in the top 10% of documentary filmmakers in the world. I'm considered one of the best now in my field. So that's a huge honor. Okay. Now a shorter list comes out on February 9th. This week is when people are voting. So this week, if you can post something about, what's going on in Chicago and hashtag Oscars or hashtag the Academy Awards or go to our website. This is something that will help us a lot. Go to our website called ChicagosHiddenWar.com. ChicagosHiddenWar.com. And enlist. It'll say just put your email. We'll update you when it's coming out. In London, we'll update you when it's coming out. In the UK and in the United States and all that. So our team is doing that. All those kind of things help. Or either just post like what's happening, the killings in Chicago. It is a shame and it should not be ignored. Those are the things that people can do to really help. If you know someone in the Oscars, you can post and say, hey, look at this incredible film or something. I don't know. Don't do that. Maybe that could be against the rules. They got so many rules. Forgive me if I said that. Forgive me, Oscars. I'm a new filmmaker. I'm like at this level. But you can hashtag things and just let them know this is a story that needs to be heard because, for kids to live like this is unbelievable in one of the greatest countries in the world. It's just sad.
Dr. Dimas, we look forward to speaking to you after the Oscar win.
Yes.
We absolutely we've got you on tape agreeing to speaking to us after the Oscar win before you get. But thank you so much for speaking to us.
Thank you.
We really hope and pray that the film does go all the way because it does shed a light on the darkness and then it empowers the church also.
Yes. Can I say that part that I didn't get to say is that the church is the most incredible force on the ground in Chicago, and that is not ignored in this movie. When you see what the church does, it's gonna blow your mind. It's gonna, I have a friend out there named Nikki, Pastor Nikki, and his wife is Peppa out there. The Alpha Church in the UK. Some good friends. It's gonna expand people's minds of what we can do on the streets to win people. Even in the UK, even in if you go from all over the UK, this paradigm works and people need to do it. Yeah.
Pastor Dimas, thank you so much for speaking to us.
Oh, thank you so much. It's an honor.
Premier Gospel.